does not fight. Calm is not passivity. It is trust. When most people hear the word calm, they imagine stillness mistaken for surrender. They think of a person sitting quietly while the world passes them by, opportunities slipping through their fingers like sand. But this is a misunderstanding born from a culture that worships tension and calls it productivity. True calm is not the absence of action. It is the absence of inner conflict. Calm is not giving up. Calm is giving in, not in the sense of defeat, but in the sense of agreement. It is the moment when you stop arguing with the present moment and allow it to be what it is. And strangely enough, it is only then that intelligent action becomes possible. You see, most of our actions are not responses to life, but reactions to fear. We move not because movement is needed, but because stillness makes us uncomfortable. We speak not because wisdom is required, but because silence feels like danger. In this state, activity becomes noise and effort becomes exhaustion. Calm interrupts this cycle. Calm says, "Let me see clearly first." Trust, in this sense, is not blind optimism. It is not repeating affirmations in the hope that reality will magically rearrange itself. Trust is a recognition, almost a scientific observation, that life has been managing itself long before you arrived and will continue long after you are gone. Your heartbeat does not ask for your permission. Your lungs do not wait for instructions. The stars do not consult your anxieties before moving across the sky. And yet, you trust all of this without question. The problem begins when the mind tries to take control of processes. It does not understand. It believes that constant interference is responsibility, but what it often produces is friction. Like stirring muddy water in an attempt to make it clear, the more you interfere, the less you can see. Calmness is the courage to stop stirring. In Eastern philosophy, which Alan Watts so lovingly translated for the Western mind, there is the idea of Wu Wei, often described as non-doing. But this does not mean doing nothing. It means not forcing. It means acting in accordance with the natural flow rather than against it. A skilled sailor does not fight the wind. He reads it. He adjusts his sails. He cooperates. This is trust in action. When you are calm, you are not inactive, you are responsive. You listen before you move. You sense before you decide. Your actions arise from clarity rather than panic. And paradoxically, these actions tend to be far more effective. Think of how the body heals itself. If you cut your finger, you do not anxiously supervise every cell. You do not shout instructions at the skin. You clean the wound, perhaps, and then you let the intelligence of the body do the rest. Healing is a cooperative process. Your role is participation, not domination. Life works the same way. But the ego, our idea of ourselves as isolated controllers, does not like this. It thrives on tension. It feels important when it is busy. Calm threatens it because calm reveals that much of its struggle is unnecessary. To be calm is to admit that you are not the sole author of existence. You are a chapter, not the whole book. This realization can feel frightening at first. If I am not in control, then what am I? The answer is simpler and more beautiful than the question. You are part of what is happening. Trust arises naturally when you see this. You begin to notice that even your so-called mistakes have their place. That detours often lead to deeper understanding. That what you once labeled as failure was simply life redirecting energy. When you stay calm in uncertainty, you create space for insight. Instead of rushing to conclusions, you allow meaning to reveal itself. Instead of forcing answers, you let them ripen. Just as fruit tastes sweetest when it is allowed to mature, so do outcomes when they are not prematurely grabbed. Calmness also changes your relationship with time. Urgency dissolves. You stop living in a constant rehearsal for the future. You realize that the only place where anything can actually happen is now. And the present moment, when not resisted, is remarkably manageable. This is why calm feels so powerful. It brings you back into direct contact with reality instead of with your thoughts about reality. And reality, when faced directly, is rarely as terrifying as the stories we tell about it. To trust the universe is not to expect it to obey your wishes. It is to understand that you and the universe are not in opposition. You are not a stranger knocking on life's door. You are life expressing itself from a particular point of view. When this is understood, striving relaxes into participation. Anxiety softens into curiosity. Control transforms into cooperation. And from this calm cooperation, action arises naturally, without strain, without desperation, without fear. You still move forward, but you do so with grace rather than force. That is why calm is not weakness. It is alignment, and alignment is the most powerful position you can take. There is a curious pattern woven into the fabric of human experience. The things we want most often seem to slip away the moment we reach for them too eagerly. Happiness retreats when pursued directly. Love becomes strained when demanded. Peace vanishes the instant we try to capture it and keep it forever. This is not because life is cruel, but because life does not respond well to being hunted. The mind, however, is a hunter by nature. It believes that desire is a problem to be solved, and that effort is the solution. If I want something, it says, I must chase it. If I stop chasing, I will lose my chance. And so begins a frantic race in which the finish line keeps moving, always just beyond reach. What we rarely notice is that the chasing itself is what creates the distance. When you chase something, you automatically place it in the future. You declare, without realizing it, that fulfillment is not here, not now, but somewhere else. This creates a subtle sense of lack, a feeling that something essential is missing from the present moment. And once the mind adopts this posture of lack, it filters everything through it. Even when what you desire arrives, it never quite satisfies because the habit of chasing has not ended. Alan Watts often pointed out that this is like trying to bite your own teeth or see your own eyes without a mirror. The harder you try, the more absurd the effort becomes. Happiness cannot be grasped because it is not an object. It is a quality of experience that arises when resistance falls away. Consider how a shadow behaves. When you run after it, it runs faster. When you stop, it stops. The same is true of many things we desire. The chase creates motion. Motion creates distance. This is especially clear in relationships. Love, when natural, is an effortless attraction. But the moment it becomes a demand, you must complete me, you must never leave, you must make me feel whole, it begins to suffocate. The other person feels hunted, even if your words are gentle. Love, like a bird, comes when you create a safe space, not when you set traps. The same principle applies to success. When success is pursued as proof of worth, it becomes exhausting. You are no longer working because you enjoy the process or feel called to it, but because you are trying to outrun a sense of inadequacy. In this state, no achievement is ever enough. Each milestone only reveals another target to chase. The irony is that people who appear most successful are often those who are least obsessed with success itself. They are absorbed in what they are doing. They are present. Their attention is not on the reward, but on the act. And because of this, Their work carries a certain ease, a rhythm that others can feel. This ease is not accidental. It is the absence of chasing. Chasing is rooted in fear, fear that life will not provide, fear that time is running out, fear that if you stop striving, everything will collapse. But fear is a poor navigator. It keeps you moving, yes, but rarely in the right direction. When you stop chasing, something remarkable happens. Energy that was scattered in anxiety begins to gather. Attention returns to the present moment. Instead of asking, "How do I get there?" you begin to ask, "What is actually happening now?" This shift in attention changes everything. You begin to notice opportunities you would have missed while rushing. You hear subtleties in conversations. You feel your own instincts more clearly. Action becomes responsive rather than compulsive. This does not mean you abandon goals or desires. It means you hold them lightly. You allow them to inform your direction without dominating your consciousness, like a compass, not a whip. In Zen, there is a saying, "If you seek it, you miss it." This is not an instruction to stop living, but an invitation to change your relationship with desire. Desire itself is natural. It is life moving toward expression. The problem arises when desire turns into grasping, when it becomes tense, narrow, and urgent. Grasping assumes that fulfillment is scarce. Trust understands that life is generous but subtle. It offers abundance, but rarely on the terms the ego demands. Think of breathing. You cannot force a satisfying breath by trying harder. In fact, the more you try to control it, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Breathing works best when you allow it. Desire works the same way. When you stop chasing, you are not resigning yourself to fate. You are aligning with a deeper intelligence. You are allowing the rhythm of life to guide your movement rather than your panic. This is why letting go often feels like things finally start to come together, not because you manipulated the universe, but because you stopped getting in its way. And perhaps the most profound insight here is this: what you are really chasing is not objects or outcomes, but a feeling, peace, wholeness, meaning. These cannot be captured in the future because they only exist in the present. The chase delays them indefinitely. So the invitation is simple, though not easy. Stop running. Pause. Feel where you are. Let desire inform you, but do not let it drive you. When the chasing ends, the running stops. And what you were pursuing has a chance, at last, to catch up with you. One of the quietest yet most persistent anxieties of the modern mind is the feeling of being behind. Behind schedule. Behind others. Behind some invisible standard that everyone else seems to be meeting with ease. We carry this sense of lateness, like a low hum in the background of our lives, rarely questioned, always assumed to be true. And yet, when examined closely, it reveals itself as one of the most unnecessary forms of suffering we create. The universe, after all, has never issued a deadline. The idea that you are late only makes sense if life is a race with a single finish line and a fixed timetable. But life does not move in straight lines, nor does it progress according to a universal clock. It moves in cycles, rhythms, seasons, each thing unfolding according to its own nature. To accuse yourself of being late is like scolding the moon for not being full every night. And yet, we do exactly this. We compare our inner lives to other people's outer appearances. We measure our beginnings against their middles, our uncertainty against their highlights. Social structures reinforce this illusion. By a certain age, you should have achieved this. By another age, you should have figured that out. These expectations are treated as facts, when in truth they are nothing more than agreements, stories we have collectively decided to believe. Alan Watts often reminded us that time, as we experience it psychologically, is largely a mental construction. The past exists as memory, the future as imagination. The only thing that ever truly exists is the present moment. Yet we spend most of our energy living in imagined futures, where we are either finally complete or permanently behind. This creates a tragic irony. In trying to get to life, we miss it. When you believe you are late, you begin to rush. And rushing is a subtle form of violence against your own experience. You stop listening. You skip steps. You demand clarity before understanding has had time to form. In this state, even good opportunities feel stressful because they are taken not from readiness, but from fear. But look at nature. Nothing in nature hurries, and nothing is unfinished. A flower does not panic because it has not bloomed yet. A river does not criticize itself for taking a long path to the sea. Each process unfolds with an intelligence that cannot be improved by anxiety. The oak tree does not envy the bamboo for growing faster, nor does the bamboo feel inferior for lacking the oak's depth. When you feel late, it is because you are measuring yourself against a rhythm that is not your own. This is where the idea that nothing is missing becomes so important. The sense that something essential is absent, some quality, some achievement, some breakthrough, is what fuels restlessness. But this sense is not evidence, it is interpretation. It is the mind comparing what is to what it imagines should be. In reality, the present moment is always whole. It may be uncomfortable, uncertain, or incomplete in terms of plans, but it is never lacking in being. You are breathing. You are aware. You are here. Nothing has gone wrong at the level of existence itself. This does not mean that growth is unnecessary or that change is an illusion. It means that growth happens from fullness, not from deficiency. A seed does not grow because it is ashamed of being a seed. It grows because growth is its nature. So too with you. When you stop telling yourself that you are late, something relaxes inside. The constant self-correction softens. You begin to act from interest rather than pressure. And from this state, progress becomes organic rather than forced. There is also a deeper comfort in realizing that many of the delays you resent are actually forms of preparation. Life is not wasting time when it slows you down. Often, it is teaching you something that speed would have prevented you from learning. What looks like stagnation from the outside may be integration on the inside. Alan Watts liked to say that the universe is not in a hurry because it has nowhere else to go. This includes you. Your life is not a preliminary draft waiting to be corrected. It is the finished work expressing itself moment by moment. The belief that you are late assumes that there is a final version of you somewhere in the future that you must rush to become. But this is a misunderstanding of identity. You are not becoming real later. You are real now, in every phase, including confusion, doubt, and transition. And perhaps the most liberating realization is this: even if you were late, by society's standards, life would not punish you for it. Life does not withhold love, meaning, or opportunity as a form of discipline. It responds to presence, sincerity, and openness, qualities that are available at any age, in any circumstance. When you drop the story of lateness, time itself feels different. Moments expand. You begin to notice details. You become patient, not because you are forcing yourself to wait, but because there is nothing you believe you must outrun. So, the invitation of this keynote is gentle but radical. Stop accusing yourself of being behind. There is no master schedule you have failed to follow. There is only this moment, offering itself fully, asking only that you participate in it. You are not late. Nothing is missing. And life is not waiting for you to catch up. It is already here. There is a strange seriousness with which human beings approach life, as though existence were an examination they might fail at any moment. We furrow our brows, tighten our jaws, and speak reverently of hard work, as if effort must always be accompanied by strain to be legitimate. But this heavy attitude, so admired in modern culture, often hides a misunderstanding. We confuse intensity with effectiveness and tension with dedication. Alan Watts delighted in pointing out that the universe is not solemn. Stars explode, galaxies spin, and yet none of this is done with a grim sense of duty. Life is exuberant, experimental, even playful. And when human effort aligns with this playful quality, it becomes remarkably powerful. Playfulness does not mean carelessness. It means involvement without anxiety. When you watch a child absorbed in play, you see effort in its purest form. The child is focused, energetic, and persistent, but not tense. There is no inner commentary about success or failure, no fear of wasting time, no constant self-judgment. The activity is its own reward. This is why children can spend hours engaged in something that would exhaust an adult in minutes. The adult, meanwhile, has learned to load effort with meaning. Every action must lead somewhere. Every moment must justify itself. And so effort becomes burdened with expectation. The work is no longer just work. It is proof of worth, insurance against the future, protection against fear. Under this weight, even simple tasks feel heavy. Playfulness removes this weight. When effort is playful, you are no longer trying to extract a specific outcome from each action. You are exploring. You are responding. You are participating in a process rather than attempting to dominate it. This shift changes not only how you feel, but also how effective you are. Consider the difference between pushing a door that says, "Pull," and gently pulling it open. The force applied may be greater in the first case, but it is wasted. In the second, the movement is effortless because it cooperates with the design of the situation. Playfulness is the willingness to discover which way the door opens. This is closely related to the Taoist idea of Wu Wei, action without strain. Not action without effort, but action without resistance. When you are playful, you are not fighting the moment. You are curious about it. And curiosity is a far more intelligent guide than fear. Fear says, "I must get this right." Playfulness says, "Let's see what happens." The irony is that people who approach life playfully often achieve more, not because they are obsessed with results, but because they are fully present. Presence allows for adjustment. It allows you to notice when something isn't working and change direction without ego getting in the way. Strain, on the other hand, narrows perception. It locks you into a single approach and demands success at any cost. This is why so much forced effort feels exhausting and unproductive. You are not only doing the task, you are also managing fear, defending identity, and monitoring results. The energy cost is enormous. Playful effort simplifies everything. It removes the unnecessary layers and leaves only the activity itself. Think of musicians improvising together. They are working, listening, responding, adjusting, but the work feels light. Each note is an experiment, not a verdict. Mistakes become part of the music rather than interruptions. This is why improvisation often feels alive in a way that rigid performance does not. Life, too, is improvisation. When you take it too seriously, you forget that there is no final performance to be judged. There is no audience keeping score. There is only the ongoing dance of experience. To be playful is to remember that you are allowed to experiment. This does not mean you abandon discipline or responsibility. Discipline itself can be playful when it is chosen rather than imposed. A dancer practices daily, not out of grim obligation, but out of love for the movement. A writer returns to the page not to prove something, but to explore what wants to be said. When effort arises from interest, it sustains itself. When it arises from fear, it burns out. Playfulness also changes your relationship with failure. In a playful mindset, failure is feedback, not condemnation. It tells you something about the game you are playing. You adjust the rules, try again, or invent a new game altogether. There is no personal insult in it. This is why play is deeply connected to learning. We learn fastest when we are relaxed enough to be wrong. Strain closes this openness. It demands certainty where none is possible. Alan Watts often laughed at the idea that life is a problem to be solved rather than a mystery to be lived. Playfulness is the proper attitude toward a mystery. You do not try to conquer it, you engage with it. When you allow effort to be playful, you discover a surprising thing. Energy returns. Tasks that once felt heavy regain a sense of movement. Creativity flows. Even challenges feel less personal, more like puzzles than threats. So the invitation here is not to stop making effort, but to change the spirit in which effort is made. Relax your grip on outcomes. Lighten your sense of importance. Treat life less like a battlefield and more like a dance floor. You will still sweat. You will still stumble. But you will also laugh, and in that laughter, you will find a kind of intelligence that strain could never produce. Effort works best when it is playful, because play is how life itself moves.
You know, there's something rather curious